Good morning and welcome to Holy Trinity Lutheran Church here in northeastern Massachusetts. I'm Pastor John Polk, and I'm delighted to welcome you to worship with us in this way. Today is the fifth Sunday after Epiphany, February 6, 2022. And I'd like to share with you the reading of the Holy Gospel. It comes from the Gospel of St. Luke, the 5th chapter. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he saw two boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done this, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats, so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching people." When they had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. The Gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Now, to give a little context for this sermon, please know that after our worship service today is our annual meeting. Grace to you and peace from God our Creator, from our risen Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and from our Sustainer, the Holy Spirit. Amen. I'd like to begin the sermon this morning by sharing with you the words, the lyrics from our hymn of the day, which is entitled, "You Have Come Down to the Lake Shore." It goes like this. You have come down to the lake shore, seeking neither the wise nor the wealthy, but only asking for me to follow. Sweet Lord, you have looked into my eyes, kindly smiling, you've called out my name. On the sand I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you I will seek other seas. You know full well what I have, Lord, neither treasure nor weapons for conquest, just these my fish nets and will for working. Sweet Lord, you have looked into my eyes, kindly smiling, you've called out my name. On the sand I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you I will seek other seas. You need my hands, my exhaustion, working love for the rest of the weary, a love that's willing to go on loving. Sweet Lord, you have looked into my eyes, kindly smiling, you've called out my name. On the sand I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you I will seek other seas. You have fished other waters, you the longing of souls that are yearning. O loving friend, you have come to call me. Sweet Lord, you have looked into my eyes, kindly smiling, you've called out my name. On the sand I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you I will seek other seas. Now I must confess to you that are watching that at the worship service in a couple of hours, I will be singing that as a solo to start my sermon, but I get here far too early on Sunday mornings to ask Rita to come and accompany me on the piano, our musician. So I share that song with you to say thank you. As we gather for our annual meeting, this is a small way to express a huge sense of gratitude for calling me as your pastor. That hymn of the day was the hymn of the day at my installation just last September, and for those of you who might have been here, you may have noticed that I was bawling. I was crying while trying to sing it with all of you. They were tears of joy and of gratitude because the song tells my story, and I believe it tells your story as well. And so it becomes our story together as a people of God. That song tells my story, and I believe it tells your story as well, and so it becomes our story together as the people of God. What is that story? It had been a long night for Simon. He had done everything a good fisherman is supposed to do, just like he had been taught. He had been doing it the same way for years, night after night, week after week, season after season, but that night was different. The usual routine did not work this time. The net was empty. Simon caught nothing, not one fish. After 129 years together, the people of Holy Trinity had been doing everything good church people are supposed to do, just like you had been taught by so many capable pastors and teachers and parents. And you had been doing it year after year since 1893, when this church, whose original name was the Swedish Lebanon Evangelical Lutheran Church, was received into the Evangelical Lutheran Augustana Synod with its first official pastor, the Reverend A.M. Benander. 129 years of serving in, witnessing to, and caring for this community and this world. After 36 years as an ordained minister, after serving 5 churches as a pastor and 3 hospitals as a chaplain, I too had been doing my best as a pastor and a chaplain the way we are supposed to do, and just as I had been taught by pastors and teachers and mentors and colleagues, and most importantly by the people I serve, church members and friends and hospital patients and staff and their families. But this time, 1 year ago, was a bit different. I had every intention of leaving as my contract as a transitional pastor required. And you had every intention of saying goodbye. We were to part ways. But instead, Jesus invited me to get into a boat he was in by the lakeshore. And he invited you to get into a boat he was in by the lakeshore. And it was the same boat. We were in the same boat when Jesus said, he said to us, "Go out into the middle of the lake where it is deep and let down your nets for a catch." And so we did. We rowed that boat together to the middle of the lake and we cast our nets into the deep. We cast our nets into the deep and we took a chance, even though we both had different plans. Our nets were empty 1 year ago, but when the Spirit of God came upon us through an invitation by the ultimate fisher of people, Jesus himself, and here we are. As people of God, we are called by Jesus to cast our nets into the deep, into the unknown, rather than sitting along the safe lakeshore cleaning our empty nests. The temptation is always to sit on the shore washing our empty nets that only serve to remind us of what we don't catch, nets that serve only to remind us of the ones that got away and the ones we have lost. Empty nets that only serve us by opining the way it was, remembering the good old days. That's not where Jesus wants us, along the shore where it's safe. Rather, he invites us to get into the boat with him and go to the deep where there is risk, but also wonder and awe and bounty and plenty, if we only dare to cast our nets into the divine deep. Of course, there is something about deep water that is frightening. You cannot touch the bottom. You cannot see through the deep. You don't know what may be down there. And people drown in deep water. And that is the point. That is the point. The deep is the place where we both drown and then swim. It is the place where we are buried with Christ and raised with Christ at the same time. The deep is where we experience the fullness of our baptism, the fullness of the divine life. But too often we are content to stay along the shore. It is safe and comfortable and familiar. If it gets too scary, we just step out of the shallow water onto the shore. But shallow waters is the place of empty nets. The deep is exactly where we must go. It is where we are called to be, and it is what the world so desperately needs. For almost 2 years now, we have cast our nets into the deep because that's what this worldwide pandemic has called for. We've changed because we've had to. We've stopped many of our traditions. We've tried new things. We have experimented, and some of those experiments have failed, and some have led to full nets being pulled from the deep. Instead of sticking to the safety of shallow water, we have done our faithful best to meet the ever-changing needs of a world in turmoil, of a community in need. Why do we cast our nets into the deep? Why do we not just play it safe? Because this exhausted, weary, broken world needs transformed people. People who are willing to plunge into the divine depths and reemerge on the surface as new people, new creations. People who are a beacon of hope and light and goodness and kindness during, for example, this pandemic and to this world in turmoil. Compassionate to those who are grieving, those who are hungry, those who are homeless, those who are weary, those who are disappointed again and again and again because of how this pandemic upsets our normal lives. Above all, transform people like you and me, bring people together. Tear down walls and build bridges between people and friends and families and faith communities that have been torn apart by the divisions this pandemic causes. Every day that we put into the deep water becomes a new day, a new creation. Every day that we move away from the shallow water into the deep water to care for one another, to be kind to one another, to welcome one another, to right wrongs together, is a new day, a new creation. For just as in the beginning, as we read in Genesis, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, so today the Son of God is moving us upon the face of the water, and a new creation is about to take place today. My dear brothers and sisters, Jesus is taking us deep water fishing. We're in the boat together with Jesus at the helm. There's nothing our nets will miss when we cast our nets with him. From that beautiful hymn, we hear these words: you need my hands, my exhaustion, working love for the rest of the weary, a love that's willing to go on loving. Sweet Lord, you have looked into my eyes, kindly smiling, you've called out my name. On the sand, I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you, I will seek other seas. Amen.